hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of Shia Muslims in Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim al Zakzaky is an inspirational leader. But he's been detained for the last 3.5 years, ever since a raid on his home where he was arrested. A crackdown followed, and more than 300 members of Zakzaky's Islamic movement of Nigeria were killed, including 3 of his sons. To this day, the Shia cleric remains in detention, charged with murder and breaching the peace. But is he being targeted because of his beliefs? For decades, he and his followers have had regular run-ins with the country's government. In fact, Nigeria's National Assembly was forced to go on lockdown last week after police clashed with Zakzaky's supporters who were demanding his release. But Buhari's government doesn't seem to be budging. Let's find out why. Well, joining me now in Abuja is Deji Adeyanju. He's a human rights activist who says he's been detained multiple times by the government. Also in Abuja, we have lawyer Daniel Bwala. He's a former Senate candidate that ran for the ruling All Progressives Congress Party. And in London is Kayode Ogundamisi. He's a Nigerian affairs analyst and was a member of Muhammadu Buhari's 2019 presidential campaign. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Deji, Sheikh Zakzaky's ongoing detention, is it justified?
It can never be justified because under our laws, it is clearly stated that every human being, every citizen of this country shall not be deprived of his rights except on the order of valid court or in execution of the judgment of the court. Contrary to this provision of the Constitution, Sheikh Zakzaky has been detained since December 2015, that's close to 4 years now, unlawfully by the Nigerian government against valid court orders, which contravenes all the provisions of Section 34 up to Section 50 of our Constitution. So the continuous detention of Sheikh Zakzaky is in direct violation of the laws of our country. So it can never be justified.
Right. So Daniel, what we're hearing from Deji is essentially Sheikh Zakzaky is a political prisoner here. Is that how you see it?
No, I don't see it that way. Even though I agree in part with the submission of the last speaker, citing the constitutional provision that nobody can be unjustly or unlawfully detained unless by an order of the court. But there is also a dimension called the national security dimension, which I know even in England, after the wake of 9/11, when the UK citizens that traveled to spots they call the trouble spots for terrorism were restricted from coming back to England, the matter went to court. And the court, I think the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, or one of the courts in England, gave a judgment that under the given situation that the right of citizens of the United Kingdom can be restricted temporarily until the government Daniel, is able to deal with the situation.
So allow me to come in here. So
I believe that sometimes there are national security issues that can...
Right. So Daniel, you're trusting the government to make that call, right? 3 years ago, the Nigerian army had a report, an intelligence report, that linked this group, the Islamic movement of Nigeria, to Boko Haram. Boko Haram are Sunni Takfiris. They hate these guys who are Shias, right? So if you have intelligence coming and linking these two who are diametrically opposed on a theological level and a political level, doesn't it make us question the intelligence of the intelligence services?
Well, let me say it this way. I do not have these facts that you have just said. I need to be able to read it and interpret between the lines what the report actually said. But I know for a fact that in the intelligence world, you can do your assessment and give a preliminary report pending the final verification or final investigation over a matter. I cannot, while talking to you right now, say that this sect can be linked or are linked to Boko Haram. It is a fact that I know that there is a Shiite sect under the Islamic law, even though the governor of Kaduna, the state where this incident happened, said that this particular movement is different from the original Shiite that we have. They said there are 3 types. There are those ones that believe in the government of the federation, respect the president, believe in the constitution, and obey constituted authority. But his argument is that these ones, the movement, they do not regard the Constitution of Nigeria, they do not respect the President of the Federal Republic, and they do not obey the laws of the land. And let me say that, Imran, They have been protesting, and it is their right to protest. And nothing has happened to them for all these weeks and months. They have been protesting until these few days ago when they resorted to violence before there was a clash. So it is the right of every citizen of Nigeria to protest. It is their constitutional right to express their opinion, but the expression of the opinion must be within the ambits of the law.
Kayode, is this a legitimate group with legitimate demands who's being unfairly treated, or is it a dangerous group?
Every Nigerian has a right and freedom of association, freedom to practice their religion. And there are more than 600 religious practices in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, this is not the only minority Islamic sect or movement in Nigeria. There are thousands of minority sects across the country, and they practice their religion without hindrance. This particular group have not covered themselves saintly. They have inhibited the movement of citizens. In Kaduna State, they've built a sort of republic for themselves. They do not believe in Nigeria. But having said that, it does not justify the long detention of El Zakzaky, even if the law permits the government to keep him. And let me quickly point out that it is not just this government that has done this. Zakzaky had 9 children. He's lost 6. 3 to previous government before this government and 3 to this government. So there is an history of violence within this movement, and it is not just the government alone. Both sides have issues to answer.
Okay, so Deji, when we look at some of the teachings of the movement, they do believe in vilayat faqih. They support the Iranian Revolution. Some of the comments that have come out of the group seem to suggest that they would like something similar in Nigeria. That's unlikely to happen, but do the other 2 gentlemen make a good point that when you have a group that rejects the constitution and doesn't want to accept the rules of the political game in the society that they're living in, then you have to be cautious when it comes to them?
I would like to take a very different view from them. I disagree with them completely and in totality, and I want to make it very clear that the first speaker was economical with the truth when he said that that you can detain, the government can detain people, for as long as they so choose with the doctrine of national security. That's completely wrong. And I would like to cite the case of SSS.
I never said that. I never said that.
That case was decided, and the Supreme Court held that no government has the right to unlawfully detain any Nigerian citizen based on national security, on the doctrine of national security, without recourse to the court. And the Zakzaky case is quite similar with that of the Sambo Zakzaky case, where the president has become the accuser. He is also the judge and the jury in that matter. He has found Zakzaky guilty, and that's why even the Attorney General of the Federation has recently said that they will not be released in contravention of valid court orders. So it is impunity taken too far. Secondly, on the issue that Kayode raised, I would like to just react simply by saying that it is also not true. Because you cannot say that this group does not believe in the constitution or the federation of the country, when in fact this group, when the army killed over 1,000 of them in what has been tagged by even the Amnesty International as extrajudicial killing and genocide, mass murder. This group did not react, they did not retaliate, they did not take up to arms like Boko Haram did. When
I don't know if Deji listens to the. I don't know if Deji
went to court.
Okay.
This group went to court.
Okay.
They went to court to challenge
so Deji,
the
okay, so Deji,
killings
so,
of their
so,
members.
so Deji, hold on, gentlemen.
When they went to court,
Okay, so
the group got 4 judgments in court.
I don't know.
4 judgments in court.
okay, hold on,
Deji's
gentlemen. Hold on.
mixing up
Kayode,
the
I'm going to bring
issues
you
here.
in a second. Deji, give me a second. Deji, give me a second.
How then can anyone therefore go forward to say the group does not believe in the existence of the
so
country,
they went to the court. Okay,
or
fair
the
point.
Federation of Nigeria?
Fair point, Deji, fair point. Kayode, you can respond in a second, but
I
let
think
me ask you, hold on, Kayode, let me ask you, hold on,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Deji says more than 1,000. The government says 347 people killed. Now, what was interesting is at that time, even Human Rights Watch said the killings were wholly unjustified. Their words, not mine. And then you had a Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the killings that called for the general officer commanding the Army's 1st Division, Major General Adeniyi Oyebade, to be prosecuted, right? Because they said this was wrong, this was a massacre. With that in mind, doesn't Deji have a point?
Yeah. I don't know what version Deji is listening to in this interview. This is clear. Maybe when he replays it, he will listen quite well. Look, even a massacre of one Nigerian is unjustified, not to talk of the killing of 1,000 people or 300 people. And a lot of us condemn extrajudicial killing. But the fact is, Deji should listen to it's not me saying this is what the group believes in. Ordinary Google search will tell you the Shia movement believes in an Islamic-style Islamic state in Nigeria. Nigeria is a secular state. You cannot impose any doctrine, whether you're Boko Haram, whether you're Sharia, whether you're Catholic, and these are separate issues. Yes, you can blame the government for mishandling the issue with Zakzaky. As a matter of fact, the killing of the Boko Haram leader led to where we are today, and this government should not take that same step. But you need to separate politics and identify this group that has violated the rights of Nigerians. They have blocked roads and refused communities to go about their normal business, but that does not justify the actions being taken by government. It is easy for us to actually say government has done wrong, but groups need to also be responsible. Where your right ends is where another person's right begin. They shot police officers guiding lawmakers. That is not the right way forward. I feel this government should negotiate with the group. They should release the leader or obey whatever laws or whatever judgment in court. I'm not really conversant with the pronouncements in the judiciary. But we have to recognize that this group has not done itself favors with the way it has gone about harassing innocent Nigerians, creating a kingdom for himself in Kaduna State, making life unbearable for people in Zaria. And you cannot separate that from what we're dealing with now.
Daniel, I want you to address something for us, because there is a claim from the group and the group's supporters and some who look at the situation and ask the question, well, can you only be an acceptable Muslim in Nigeria if you are Sunni Muslim, and if you're a Shia Muslim, that doesn't fly? Address that issue for me.
Right. So let me correct that notion. It is not correct assessment, or it is not correct assertion. And like I told you, what the governor of Kaduna said, there are 3 types of Shia in Nigeria. The 2, apart from this one, the movement, the 2 are allowed to practice their theology of Shia, and there is no inhibition, there is no restriction, and there is no maltreatment of any sort on them. And like Kayode said, and I reiterate, the law recognizes the right of any person in Nigeria to worship whoever he wants to worship. But you must respect the constituted authority and the laws of the land. You can challenge authority, you can challenge the law by going to court. You are not allowed to resort to arms. You are not allowed to turn protest to violence, because doing so will mean that you are going against the law. And when you go against extant law, you will face the wrath of the law. Let me say for the obtained time, no killing of any citizen in Nigeria is justifiable under whatever guise, unless under the provision of the Constitution says, if in the act of suppressing insurrection, anything like that happens. And secondly, if a commission of inquiry comes out with any finding that indict the Nigerian army, they should face the wrath of the law. If El Zakzaky's detention is against the order of the court, the government should respect the order of the court. Okay. That's what we're saying. But I am saying that when you want to look at it prospectively, and you want to look at the reason why he is detained, for example, I don't have available facts that the federal government has or the intelligence community have. So national security sometimes can be a reason, but if there is an order of court, the order of the court ought to be obeyed. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Deji, the army accuses this group of trying to assassinate the chief of army staff. Why don't you believe them?
That's a lie. You see, basically, it's about human rights. Almost all the arguments we have canvassed about human rights. Kayode and my other friend over in the studio, I forgot his name, they both know that there's no group in Nigeria that you kill 1,000 of their members that will be quiet. This group is one of the most peaceful groups in the history of this country. They're one of the most peaceful groups. We have in place a government that is lawless, that supports impunity, a tyrannical government that believes that the only way
Deji does not live in Nigeria. He probably lives.
dominance over the
I live
country
here in
is by
Abuja. Deji does not live in
ruthlessly killing
Nigeria.
those that it considers as its critics or enemies. If not, how can you justify killing 1,000 people and you insist that they must not protest? Then this is a government that negotiates with terrorists, the killer Fulani headsmen. The government negotiates with them. The bandits that have killed hundreds and thousands of people in Zamfara. The Boko Haram that has killed over 40,000 people. This government negotiates with them. But when the players protest on the street, they kill them.
Okay.
So how can anyone who has compassion in his heart, who is familiar with the doctrine of the rule of law, ever support a government like this? Well, you find people justifying the actions
I think
of
Deji has a problem with listening and comprehending people's comments and opinions.
Rights have been violated.
Gentlemen, I've got to jump in here. I'll tell you why I've got to jump in.
The Human Rights Watch has said rights have been violated.
Fair enough.
Amnesty International have said rights have been violated. The global community knows. America, look at the time that the army
Deji, I've got to jump in.
killed Shiites. Then the army tweeted a video of Donald Trump to justify the killings.
Okay.
You can imagine
Deji, listen, I'm going to lose all your windows. Listen, Deji, I'm sorry, Deji, I'm really sorry. Listen,
Deji, what is happening?
Deji, give me a second.
Different forms of justification.
Deji, I'm going to have to. Deji, I'm going to have to actually. I'm going to have to lower your audio. I'll tell you why. Daniel and Kayode's satellite windows are going to drop out any second now. So this is a good opportunity to wrap the discussion. Gentlemen, this has been a good introduction to this issue, and we will undoubtedly have more conversations about this. I thank you all for joining us on the Newsmakers.